So I kind of started thinking about the idea of what specifically is a painting. After looking at various artists, people like Ryman, Robert Ryman and Hugh Hartwig, to sort of formulate this process of having pictorial and illusionistic representations on a canvas concurrent with sort of so-called abstract forms. So they were both abstract and sort of pictorial at the same time. And I kind of thought that was something, a painting that was something that was definitive or just a defining aspect of painting, perhaps. One of the things I borrowed off Richter was, I really like that idea that he came up with painting from photographs, and that when you paint from photographs you don't have to make any decisions. Like the colour is all there, the composition is all there. So you just, it eliminates the need to make sort of subjective, sort of personal decisions, and you can think about other ideas. So I guess what happened was, I started getting into these grids because the grid process, is a way of translating an image from a photograph to a canvas. You quite simply grid up the photograph, and then you grid up the canvas, and you fill in each square from the photo to the painting. And so I developed this system of like putting tape down in a grid fashion on the canvas, and then painting over the grid, and then pulling the grid off. So you get this kind of the white behind the image coming to the front and disrupting the image. So the grid was a kind of a reference of, it's kind of a motif that came out of the gridding process. And then it had a kind of means of, another thing the grid did is it kind of mapped the surface of the painting. You became aware of the materiality of the painting, that it was this flat thing, like tiles in a bathroom. It's kind of, the grid is a kind of a mapping system. But the grid also, the white lines that the grid created were played off against the kind of pictorial illusionism of whatever the image was. So you get this kind of tension occurring. Say on one canvas, say on a canvas this size here, you can make a grid that size, and you have an understanding of it when the grid is that scale. But if you make it really small, it gives you a completely different sense or understanding of that surface. If you make it even bigger, it's a different kind of relationship. But on the other hand, I find the grid really disturbing. It's kind of fascist, It's there's no room for minorities in the grid world. And even in the most perfectly drawn, beautifully executed grid, if you look really closely, there are things which fall outside, where the pencil wavered slightly, or a piece of dust crept in and made your line go askew. So the kind of idea of a grid being perfectly defined is this kind of, it's false. All the work has always been about this kind of employment of a masking a device and then painting over the top. It's oscillated between a really strict, tight grid, the employment of the grid, and a kind of perhaps more kind of random employment of different sort of non-grid-like arrangements, like the work up there perhaps. And now I think the work's finally sort of coming to some kind of synthesis between the two. And I'm finding ways of justifying reasons for making, in my own head, not for any other real reason, for making this series of works. When you're looking at a successful painting, say, of a tree, and you're convinced that it's a tree, you suspend belief that it's a flat painted object for a moment. So you're negating that particular reading of the object. And vice versa, when you go up close and you look at the chunky bits of paint, you're negating the sort of illusionistic aspect of the painting of the tree. What's the image behind this? What's behind this is the white of the prime canvas, that paint, or the image is actually in the front, but you get this kind of negation of those values. I'm not quite sure whether this has finished this work because the image is so difficult to read.